Get it up so I can see the chat.
Right, Shaun Attwood, this is the turn of the books, because it's normally the way around. How you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. And huge thank you, Jamie, for having me on and for organising so many great guests for us. The Nick Manners one, it's flying high right now. The Lee Duffy Cop one is flying high. The Venice one's 6 figures. So you've really, introduced us to some brilliant people who the public really want to hear their stories.
So the next couple of weeks we've got, our Man and Alex Reed's yet to be released.
Yeah,
we've got
coming out
Julie
soon.
Witter, world champion boxer. Obviously you're going to be back up my neck of the woods next month, I think it is. So yeah, do you know what? It's my job, Shaun. I just meet that many different people, interesting people, all different kind of walks of life, a bit like yourself. But you know what? I like the underdog in life. I like people like Wildman. Like say for instance, someone said, "Keep away from him. He's a weirdo." I want to go drinking with him. Do you know what I mean? It's
you like eccentric characters, larger than life characters, from what I've
seen. A lot of the questions I get asked last couple of weeks, or certainly in the last year, is and if you Google my name, it comes up Jamie Boyle Wildman. So a lot of people are Googling, and a lot of people have asked me, have you got enough material to do a Wildman book? But obviously if that happens, Shaun, which I hope it does, then you know what, I think it'd be down to the likes of yourself and his cousin Hammy and all these kind of people, because he was an unbelievable one-off character, wasn't he?
Larger than life, unique. When I reminisce about his sense of humor and just any room he entered, it wasn't just his physical size, it was the size of his personality. And he just talked to anybody. Whereas I had anxiety as a teenager, hanging out with Wildman as a kid, wherever we went, he just talked to everybody and people would be attracted to us then and surround us. And it just gave me a really great feeling that I had this friend who I was so close with from childhood. And it's R.I.P. Wildman. It's just sad that he's no longer with us. But
he had great people skills where he could sit, and it didn't matter whether it was a world champion athlete or some down and out bobo. He could talk and he could adapt to any situation, couldn't he?
He could adapt to any situation, and like you said, you're attracted to eccentrics and larger than life people. The thing about him was he was attracted to danger. So like if there was something about to kick off and most people would just want to go the other way to avoid it, he'd go towards it. He had no fear. I had no fear. I think people could see that. And if anyone was talking nonsense, he would shut it down very rapidly with his humor. He called it purification.
Yeah, it's Jen, she's brought something different to the obviously Wildman could never be replaced, but Jen, she's brought something, obviously the opposite sex, and she's adapted really, really well. She's fair play. I've met her, and I can see why you two get on. She's and she's quite intelligent as well, isn't she?
She's natural on camera. She's a perfectionist. She's looked at what she's done over the months. I think she's done 50 plus podcasts now. And she's been refining her technique. And we interviewed 3 brilliant guests yesterday. And 2 of them broke down crying on camera with us. And both of them said it was because Jen was in the room. The feminine energy brought that out of them. And these are big, tough guys. One of them has never, ever cried on camera before.
Yeah. Shaun, is your speciality is always going to be true crime? Because obviously I've introduced you to a footballer. We've got a boxer, world champion. Do you think you'll always be Shaun Attwood, this true crime guy? Or will you tend to broaden your horizons?
Yeah, we are broadening our horizons, Jamie. So when the YouTube channel started in 2007, it was just my prison stories for many years. Then it became the stories of other prisoners, and we started to help other prisoners. Then it became true crime when we started to interview cops, guards, people who have been journalists at the forefront of true crime stories, authors. But now, I mean, one of the interviews that went up at the weekend was how I became a London dominatrix.
Yeah.
Also, we have a 4-hour live stream that goes out every Wednesday called Attwood Unleashed from 6 p.m. until 10. And that is coordinated by my guest booker, Ash, who's got 1,000 potential guests in our database. And it's a cerebral, eclectic, thought-provoking, fast-paced live stream where each guest only comes on for 30 minutes. We've had Robert Greene on. We've had Richard Dawkins on. We've had all kinds of people who are experts on all kinds of subjects. So you couldn't really classify that show as being within the true crime genre. It's something completely different. Yeah, you know, we have conspiracies, we have UFOs, we've had Bigfoot, we've had flat Earth debate. So it's extreme again. Like you said, you're attracted to the wacky and the weird. It's a wacky and weird show, with a lot of quite intellectual guests.
Yeah, I mean, who's the guest that stands out for you, Shaun? So you've been doing this a long time. I know you're really grossly fascinated with the Lee Duffy story. But who's the one? I mean, who's the story? Is the Duffy story up there with the most unique you've ever heard? Because obviously he died at such a young age.
What it is, Wildman ended up in prison, didn't he, when I went off to America? Yeah. And he ended up in prison in your neck of the woods.
Accrington, wasn't it?
One of them, yeah. So he started to hear about certain characters like Lee Duffy, Viv Graham, and he had a lifelong obsession then with these characters. So when Wildman got out of prison in 2008, he gave me that book, Fight to the Death. He says, you got to read this. He still had that obsession with Lee Duffy. So I read it, didn't I? And then once Wildman started to interview people with me and hear these Lee Duffy stories and meet people who were around at that time, I think it was a fascinating thing for him because he's been so curious about all these characters for so many years. So the Lee Duffy story has been a huge part of the channel. As you know, we've published the Lee Duffy audio books for you guys. I've listened to them all, and listening to them and listening to the Paul Sykes stuff. Good grief, characters like that don't come around very often, did he, Jamie?
No, do you know what? That's exactly right. The once in a lifetime where, do you know what? I don't like to hero worship anyone. I just like to understand what made people like that. What, obviously Paul Sykes was an extremely damaged guy, physically abused, mentally abused, and you know what? That's the end product. Lee Duffy had a terrible upbringing. And it's kind of interesting to study, to think what made somebody like that, rather than, I don't want to glamorize it. I've been asked to sell shirts and all that. I would never do that. But obviously books or documentaries, they're educational. And, that's from my side, is I like to understand what makes this complete headbanger who people would be like, oh, don't go near him. What's the real reason? I think you get that as well, don't you, Shaun?
Yeah, and I think it's too complex to ever ascertain unless you were that person. And even if you are that person, I mean, me, for example, I'm spending all my life trying to figure out who I am, and you're evolving all the time as well. So it's a moving target. So the complexities are there, but it causes endless speculation and fascination as to why people do behave like that. You asked about my most memorable guests, and I think the most terrifying guest they ever interviewed was serial killer Delmus. It was on a phone call out of the prison, and he'd killed over 50 women, and he was a truck driver, had a completely normal life, girlfriend, liked to have a barbecue at the weekend with the neighbors, have a beer. And when he was pulling into these truck stops, the street walking sex workers would come and knock on his truck, and he'd tell them to go away. And if they didn't go away, if they gave him any jip, he'd be like, all right, come here then, get in the truck. As soon as they got in the truck, he just snapped their necks.
Cops and he killed
50 plus. Cops pulled him over multiple times, and he talked about it like he was doing a service. It was terrifying listening to him. I had to listen to it again the next day, and it's very rare I listen to my own recordings. But I went to bed feeling very uneasy, and I had to listen to it again the next day. The cold way he talks about it, he jokes. He's joking like he's just cleaning the streets of trash, like he's a trash man. The cops pulled him over a couple of times with corpses in the back and let him go. They didn't see the corpses. And the only reason he got caught was because he did one, and he did it in front of someone. And that person had sex with the corpse, and the DNA was left in the corpse, the semen, and the cops retrieved it. They arrested that person, and that person snitched out the serial killer in a cooperation deal to get reduced charges.
Shaun, question for you from me. Obviously, we're in the limelight. I get a lot of crap. You get a lot of crap. You know, it's we're there to be shot, and I get it. And you know, I didn't understand it for a long time. Anxiety used to get bad. How do you deal with it when you get all these kind of lies said about you? I've known you for a number of years now. I know you pretty well. And a lot of the things that said about you could never saw the opposite. But, you know, someone said to me a while back, when you're planning on becoming successful, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, and we've read all the things about you. We've seen all the things. How do you switch off? Does it ever get to you too much?
No, only in the very beginning when campaigns were launched against me by various entities because of all the videos we were doing exposing people who do heinous crimes. That's when all these campaigns started against me. And to me, it was an acknowledgement that I was above the target. So when people try and trigger you, it's a sign of your success. It's a sign you're doing the right job. It's a sign you're above the target. And if you do get tripped up by these people, it's a mistake that we all make, and I have made it, and I don't make it anymore. So these people that accuse you of things when you know in your heart of heart that you've not done anything wrong, these people who make these things up and embellish things, they're just trying to get a reaction out of you. They're completely meaningless, and all you could do is block and ignore them, because the minute you engage with them, the minute you acknowledge them, you empower them. So you just got to look at those comments that come in, and any big platform that is happening. Now, all the big true crime prison YouTubers have gone through this. Once you get hundreds of thousands of subs, these people manifest. And primarily, they're messed up in the head, or they're jealous of your success. So I'm reading a book right now, actually. It's called Troll Hunting, or Hunting Trolls or something. And this person, she interviews some of the most evil trolls in the world. And they say their goal is to trigger people, get a reaction out of them, so they're constantly accusing them of things. And the minute you react to one of those accusations, they've got you. So you absolutely cannot react. Once you react, they're in your thought space. You're then vibrating on their frequency. And it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All that time you spend going back and forth in podcast wars, in trying to rebut trolls, in whatever the hell it is energy down the toilet. And you can take that energy and you can produce great content. You can produce more books. You can produce more videos. It's just an absolute waste. So those people are actually, if you distill them down, they're energy vampires. And the second that you give them the time of day, they've got you. And I've learned that the hard way. Doesn't matter what crap people say about you. You know in your heart of heart you're a good person. You're on a mission to do the right thing. Ignore the jokers. And in this book, they asked the person, the author, she asked these trolls, what is their goal? Why did they do this? And some of these sickos were finding like families who'd like the kids had died and things like that. trolling families. And they said their goal is to try and make people to commit suicide, or to get them to go off the internet completely, to wipe them off the internet, or to cause bad relations with their workplace, try and get them fired, or to cause problems with their family members. So they're just mentally ill sickos. I'm not going to say the dumbasses, because some of them are extremely intelligent. I've learned this now from this book. But you've just got to have thick skin, Jamie. It's in one ear, out the other to me these days.
Yeah. Shaun, can I ask you, because particularly in this year, there's been a lot of rubbish. You know what I'm on about. You know, I'm not going to mention names, but there seems to be a lot of tit for tat. Do you think this is the backlash from the lockdown, where people who got mental health issues, they've been locked away for 2 years, the world hasn't actually gone back to as it's normal yet? And do you think we're seeing now some kind of reaction to the last 2 years? You know, he's a nonce, he's a grass, I want to fight with him, because it's all happening. I get it myself, and now, you know, I'm happy to just ignore it. But obviously a lot of people don't. And I think YouTube now, you know what, I used to go on here and it would educate, I'd be documentaries, where now every single day it's utter shit just from back and back. Why do you think that is, Shaun?
But it doesn't exist, Jamie. It only exists if you acknowledge it or if you read it. It doesn't have to exist. All that should exist for you is you focusing on your mission, which is to write great books, find great people to interview, and raise those people up in the world, because there's so many good people out there. You don't need to give the time of day to dickheads. So if you just stay focused and don't respond to anything anyone says about you that's negative, those people don't exist anymore. They're only empowered by your acknowledgement of them. So you just got to completely focus on your mission. And there's so many great people out there to collaborate with. So sometimes we sacrifice our standards and we collaborate with shady people, or we help people because we think we're doing the right thing, and those people turn out to be shady and they stab you in the back. I've had they got massive views, some of these videos that were put out about me by people who had hundreds of thousands of followers on their channels. I'm not going to name any names. And they put the most heinous things in the world out there about me. But it was all lies. All those videos had to be taken down. And now we know how to strike when people lie. Those people won't dare put anything up about us on their channels ever again. So we've cleaned that situation up. There is the problem of, if people put bad things out about you and they get to a massive audience, you do have to do something about it. Otherwise, the lies can get more and more out of control. And there's legal mechanisms to stop these people in the tracks. And we've learned all those legal mechanisms now. And that's what we employ. We do not engage with them directly, because the minute you do that, it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And all your days are then gone with this mental drain on this negative thing. So stay positive, stay focused. Don't let the distractions get you off the path of success.
Yeah. So, Shaun, there's a question here. So I'm curious from Shaun's perspective, which character that Jamie has researched and has interested you the most? I ask because I've noticed since you've done a few bits on Lee Duffy, Paul Sykes, Jack the Ripper. So out of all my 20 books, who's the one that you think, what story?
It's Duffy and Sykes, isn't it? I mean, you've sent me multiple books that we've made audio books out of on Duffy and Sykes. So I spent days and days and days listening to all these crazy stories. And even Nick Manners, my eyes lit up when he said Paul Sykes, and he goes, so Sykes, was...
You know something? Nick Manners was made for Shaun Attwood. And obviously when we do his book, possible documentary, I think Nick... Do you know what? Nick Manners is a rarity because he's a happy ending. You know, there's people out there and they're on the channels and they're bragging about knocking 10 men out. And, you know, Nick is a scary guy, but he learned from his mistakes. There's no cleverness in being in prison. And now he's involved with Leeds Council and he's kind of doing good. So I think Nick was made to be on the likes of that. And he's got a great story as well.
Yeah, he's an absolute gentleman. I salute Nick. And I saw firsthand how he was helping young people and the spirit in that gym, and how, you know, those kids were coming in and out with this look on their face like they had purpose and meaning in their lives. That is what people should be doing. Positive work, helping young people, collaborating, and I hope Nick goes from strength to strength. So the Sykesy story that was hilarious, and it's a bit crude, but Sykesy goes into the changing room or wherever Nick's getting ready for his fight, and he stares down from his great height at Nick and says, "I'd rather fuck you than fight you."
You know,
and Nick's backing off. Nick's backing off, and Sykesy's chasing him around the room. And Nick eventually says, "If you keep coming after me, I'm going to have to do something about it." And Sykesy came at him, and Nick just straight knocked him out. And he's like, "Oh shit, I just knocked out Paul Sykes. Now what am I going to do? He might wake up." And so he dragged him into the shower, got the water on him. He's ready to knock him out again in case he tried to jump up and get him. But Sykesy got up, said, "Great punch," went out in the audience and supported him for the rest of the night. And that's what I like about the Sykesy stories. He's just so unpredictable.
Do you know something? I mean, Paul Sykes wasn't the average man. He was a bad to the. He was like, he was a frightening guy, and he had the badness with them, and he had a real bad streak. Obviously, the film and the documentary is going to happen by Western Edge Pictures. So what's Shaun Attwood's plan? What's your plan for the next couple of years, Shaun?
Oh my goodness. When I was a young person, I did have a plan to make $1 million by the time I was 30. Now I'm just trying to live in the moment.
Can I ask you a question? Did you achieve that?
I did. Yeah, I was worth $2 million in the stock market. Started trading the stock market when I was 16, but sacrificed all my slow and steady progress to import ecstasy and build that up and sow the seeds of my own destruction and ego as big as the Grand Canyon, all that stuff. So I did achieve it, but I lost it all, didn't I? Yeah. So now I'm just going with the flow. I'm blessed, man. I've got a great team, with Jen, with all our other co-hosts, with Ash, the guest booker, with our cameraman, James, who you recently met, with Alex Sweet. We've got the sound engineer,
I met him in London as well, in Whitechapel last year. Lovely guy.
I'm blessed. I'm surrounded by good people. The viewers, you talk about people sending bad comments in and trying to trip you up. Just look at the comments on your channel. If I look at on my channel all day long, it's just love and respect and support. They're the people who deserve our focus, and they lift me up constantly and inspire me. All the viewers, all the followers, all the supporters. So we're firing on all cylinders right now. We're publishing 2 or 3 podcasts a week. We've got a 4-hour live stream every Wednesday night. It's just non-stop. And then with all the books that we're doing as well. And I'm putting a book together now based on 10, and I've not announced this to anyone yet, based on 10 of my most interesting podcast guests.
Really? Wow.
We're doing a chapter on each. And I'll tell you what, at least one that you've recommended to me is in there.
Do you know what? I must have recommended you probably 15, 20 people now. But no, do you know what? I'll find out when I know.
Shane Taylor.
Oh, is it Shane?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Shane doesn't live too far from me. I think we're the same age.
Fascinating. How extreme he went into crime, and then his redemption and the good work he does now, the spirit of him now, it's mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Yeah. Do you know, I mean, obviously, you know a little bit about Paul Venice. I think we're going to be doing a part 2 pretty soon. What's your opinion on Paul's story, Shaun?
Paul Venice, stand-up guy, speaks from the heart. You see him on his live streams and on his YouTube channel. His channel's really been picking up and taking off. And, I was honored to meet him and sit down and hear his life story. And you could see in his heart and soul the mission he's on to help his daughter and to raise money for the school and all that kind of stuff. And for people to, I came up there, didn't I? I was up there ready to help with that event. And for people, to sabotage that, it's absolutely heartbreaking. So, he's just someone who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not a manipulator. He's not a snake. He's not in this game just for vanity or anything like that. He's helping his daughter in the school. So it just shows how low people are to sabotage his event where he was going to raise money for that.
Do you know? Sean, Paul's, he's one of a very few you can trust. And this week he was guest at Middlesbrough Football Club. And the next week or two, we're going to have a sit-down meeting with the mayor of Middlesbrough. So that just goes to show you how big the Paul Venice story is. Yes, he was who he once used to be, but if he can, I didn't know him when he was the Paul Venice of old. I'd heard of him, and I knew of him, but I didn't know him. But he has really got a powerful, thought-provoking story, and I think he deserves to go as far as he does. It's just the only thing with Paul is he doesn't believe in himself. It's like I tell him some things and I say, "I'm surprised you're surprised," and he's like, he doesn't quite believe in himself. But I want to. He's someone close to me, and I want to drag him and think, you know what? Me and you will see. We'll do what we've got to do together, but we'll see how far we can get. But he's a lovely, lovely man.
Paul, if you watch this, we salute you for the great work you're doing, and you've got a pure heart. Everyone can see in every video you do how authentic you are, and you're not trying to manipulate anyone. And if going back to earlier in this conversation with Jamie, Paul, because you are successful, because you are on a mission, there's just people out there going to try and trip you up.
Yeah.
And these people aren't worth video responses. They aren't worth the time of day because they're just sucking.
Paul's had it really bad, Shaun, in the last couple of weeks.
Stop responding to these. Don't respond to these people, Paul. The energy vampires. They will suck the life out of you. All they want is you to acknowledge them for their own ego, for the purpose of their own ego, so they can go back and forth, and it will never end. They don't exist if you don't acknowledge them. Focus on the great people in your life, the collaborations, whatever it is you're doing, and you will just rise and rise. These fuckers will just try and trip you up every time.
Yeah. Gary Hutton has just messaged Shaun. So Gary Hutton, I'm going to be down in London June or July. So I think we should do something with Gary, Shaun.
Yeah, and have a nice dinner and everything. Take us some pubs on the East End.
Yeah, Gary's a proper cock and knee. Gary is proper, like he'll walk and jump in his hat in the air and click his heels and all right, governor, and apples and pears. And no, do you know what? He's a fascinating. I did a live earlier with another Cockney guy. I'm obsessed with London, as you know. But do you know what, Shaun? I'll give the last word to you. So we've been on nearly half an hour. So what are you up to lately? What's the plan for Shaun Attwood?
So spoke at a school in London today, and then we're interviewing an ex-cop who's never told his story before on Sunday. We're interviewing a dominatrix on Monday. And we learn so much from interviewing such a wide variety of people and absorbing all the different viewpoints. So honestly, Jamie, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. I feel blessed to have this YouTube platform. YouTube provides such great opportunities for people who've been through prison or been through things and can't get hired by firms to run their own businesses, basically. So it's my karmic duty, because so many people helped me when I got out of prison. It's my karmic duty to collaborate and help other people who've got out of prison and help raise them up and help them get their books out or whatever it is. And it's just really fulfilling to be able to be in this position and to be surrounded by such good people, such as yourself, such as Gary Hutton, such as Joey Barnett. And the network we have built is fantastic. So I'm loving life, Jamie. I'm loving life. And any negativity that comes in, I've got people reading my comments. It doesn't even get to me. It gets blocked. It gets deleted. I don't even see it. So, yeah. The people who are sending all this love and the people sending all this love and support. It won't be too long
before you reach that million mark. I think you're kicking on for 700,000 now.
Yeah, With the highest we've ever been right now, we're at 686,138 subscribers. And my most viral podcast guest has got 10 million views. That's Jamie Morgan Kane. And he's moved to your neck of the woods. So you might be a collaboration there for you, Jamie.
What's his name?
Jamie Morgan Kane. He's got 10 million views on all of his podcasts and clips combined. One clip is 38 minutes long. It's got 7 million views, and it just goes up every single month.
Yeah, I'll check him out. But essentially, Shaun, you're building like an empire, really, aren't you? And you do a lot of goodness, But listen, you were in prison and all this, and I think you were a prime example of how, you weren't dragged up in a council estate. You were a guy who had everything and thought, probably with the help of Wildman, God rest him, thought, you know what, I'll get involved with stuff. You've been back down, you're down there, but you've come back up. And you know what, I always say this to people: there's no fun in being in a 10 by 8 foot cell. I've done it a few years, well, when I was a teenager, 18 months, and I only wish I knew then what I know now. But if you can pass on your experiences, like going at the youth clubs and the schools and the Paul Venices and the Gary Huttons, then that mess that you once had is invaluable, and it can put it to some good use.
We are recycling what we've done in our past, some of it illegal, some of it dark. We're recycling that dark energy into lightness and hope and inspiration for other people. I get messages to this day for people saying, like, I was on the verge of killing myself. I watched the Wildman video where he was just laughing and taking the piss, and it changed my attitude. It changed my day so much. I didn't want to kill myself. It just you never know how these things are going to affect people. There's just so many people out there watching your content or reading your books. They're all doors into your world. And when these people reach out and tell you how it's affected them, it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, rightly so. And I think that's the perfect ending. I'm going to put your link, Shaun, in the bio. So obviously, I mean, listen, I've only got 7,000, but all my followers, get over to see Shaun. I watch your channel, Shaun, and I'm very selective with what I watch, because there's a lot of nonsense. You wouldn't let people walk in your house and be an arsehole, and and it's so easily done. You can watch people's rubbish on YouTube and you don't even know, and then all of a sudden you're going to bed.
It's addictive. It's addictive. It's addictive. Let me just say something on that. So several channels have become just gossip channels. Mm-hmm. It's like the gutter, but you do get sucked in. Who's beefing with who? Mm-hmm. And they're getting lots of views. But the thing is, because they're getting rewarded with views, they're keeping it up. But the thing is, they're attracting toxic viewers who are just interested in internet beefs and people getting exposed for this or that or accused of this and that. And when you get those views and cultivate those views, you might think you're growing your channel in a healthy way, but you're not, because those people will turn on you in a dime, and it's a toxic viewership. So my thing is, because my viewers stopped me, they said, Shaun, stop doing videos about these beefs. We're sick of it. And I was thinking, well, I'm finding this, like, I'm addicted, like EastEnders style. It was my viewers that pulled me out of that gutter. They said, Shaun, just concentrate on producing great content. If someone comes on your podcast, tells you their life story, people can watch that for the rest of their lives. Who's beefing who that's week? Who's going to give a shit about that a year from now?
Yeah.
It's just gossip stuff, isn't it? Like those little newspapers you just throw in the bin.
Do you think it's a reflection of how bad television is these days? Because people have stopped watching Coronation Street, EastEnders, Emmerdale Farm, and people watch that channel, and then he's got a live at 10. So I'll go back, and it's like that.
Do people still watch television, Jamie? I thought that was done over now, isn't it? Television.
No, do you know what? I think, well, I've stopped watching it apart from football or boxing thingies, but I never ever watched television. And I think
the BBC, these BBC people trying to get in my house. BBC,
like
anytime I watch BBC license inspectors trying to get in my house. the only time I ever see the BBC is when I stay at my mum and dad's, and I'm in the living room, and they're watching like Question Time or something. And I watch the BBC.
Do you know what people are providing?
Yeah,
this kind of entertainment. You know, and listen, I've been guilty of watching stuff, and I rarely comment out of anyone's, but I get annoyed with myself. And the wife says, "Why do you watch that shit?" And I watch it, and I don't even know I'm watching it. And I think tomorrow I'm not going to watch it, and I catch myself doing it again.
We've all been there, man, and it's hard to get out the gutter. It's addictive. So it took my viewers to tell me, Shaun, we are sick of you doing videos about these beefs and this stupid shit. You got a big platform with all these great podcasts you've produced. What's going on? So they woke me up. They snapped me out of it, and now I'm back on track. We're firing on all cylinders. We got 2 or 3 podcasts a week coming out, 4-hour live stream every Wednesday, and I'm loving life because that toxic stuff just drags you down.
Yeah, do you know, listen, there's channels out there which are just there to bully people. I've been a victim of, I've been the subject in a couple of people, and they're sitting there, and sometimes you think, how do people watch this? How's this, you know, but you get drawn in.
It's the gutter.
But listen, Shaun, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm going to put all your links in the bio for this video. Last word to you, Shaun.
No, huge thank you, Jamie. I've known you for many years. You've always been a stand-up guy. And, you know, these guests that you've been bringing us are phenomenal. With some of the most viewed guests on the channel you have brought us. It's been an honor to do your audiobooks. If people are interested in Jamie's books, go on Amazon and just put War Cry Publishing in. Tons will come up. And I especially recommend the Duffy and the Sykes stuff because it was all new to me and it was absolutely mind-blowing. I'm not easily shocked or surprised, but plenty of surprises in those books.
Well, do you know what? Maybe next year, me, you, and Hammy, we can sit down and think. Do you know what, Wild Man? Let's make him iconic. Let's make him that book will live, because some of the biggest books that have done unbelievable have been like Shaun Ryder's book, when they went in a hotel and they sold the settee for crack. Well, do you know what? This is just a normal day for Wildman, wasn't it?
Oh my God, I can't even get started. I just did a few interviews in London in the last week, actually, and they were a couple hours long each, and half of them were just Wildman stories. So they will be coming out very soon on some decent sized channels. Yeah.
No, I think next year is the time. Obviously, I've got busy this year. I've got a Brian Clough book to do next year. But I think, do you know what? Let's probably sit next summer and think, let's do the guy justice. But Shaun, always a pleasure, mate. I will see you next month when you're up here, and I will be in London June or July for a week. So I'm sure I'll catch you then as well.
All right, cheers, man. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Absolute pleasure, Shaun. God bless. Thanks for following, guys. Don't forget to click and subscribe.
Take care out there. Stay positive. Cheers, everyone. Much love and respect. Thank you.